for another episode of Outdoors People. First, there's me, C.W. Getz, and her, Maya Marzaki. Good evening. It's Wednesday, February 26, 2025. We got a 52-degree Fahrenheit sunny day here in north central Illinois, and that equates to 11 degrees Celsius for the rest of the world. Maya Marzaki will hopefully be joining us later. She's involved in something a little, in addition to the family. It's not what you may think, but I'll just leave it at that. You guys will keep guessing. So anyway, let's meet tonight's guest, shall we? Attorney Lauren Georgalis co-founded Bartell, Georgalis, and Juárez, LPA, after practicing in a prominent law office in downtown Cleveland, Ohio. Lauren provides client representation across the United States. Lauren is admitted to practice law in the state of Colorado and Ohio, having always lived in large municipal or multicultural cities. Lauren understands and appreciates the value immigrants add to a city. Lauren grew up in Houston, Texas, and in 2016 graduated from the University of Miami School of Law in Miami, Florida. During law school, Lauren worked for immigration nonprofits in Miami, Florida, and Washington, D.C., as she always focused her career on immigration. Jonathan Bartell has been practicing law for more than 20 years, but his interest in immigration law began years before he attended law school at Case Western Reserve University. After graduating from Ithaca College in 1993, he began a short internship in Phuket, Thailand. Prior to finishing his internship, Jonathan secured a position working for a nonprofit agency affiliated with the United Nations High Commission of Refugees. For the next 2 years, he worked with Laotian Highlanders, Cambodians, and Vietnamese in a refugee camp located in central Thailand, preparing them for life in the United States. Those that lived in the Panat Nikom refugee camp had been there for many years and waiting to resettle in the U.S. These individuals had been recruited by our CIA to fight the communists during the Vietnam War era and the secret war in Laos. While working inside the camp, U.S. immigration laws changed substantially in 1995 and began to negatively impact families that had been waiting patiently to resettle in the U.S. Finding this change and the negative impact very unfair, Jonathan began to assist some families in arguing their cases for waivers at the U.S. CIS office located in the camp. He knew from this point forward that he wanted to dedicate his life to helping those he needed, especially when navigating the complexities of immigration law. Jonathan met his wife while living in Thailand, and they have one son. Jonathan focuses on deportation defense, asylum, and family-based immigration all over the United States, and has appeared in almost every immigration court in the country. He also routinely handles criminal matters, both state and federal, throughout the state of Ohio. And with that, welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
I got to tell you, we started this broadcast, and yours truly, the not so engineer tonight, kind of messed things up here. But I tell you what, I am going to show this picture because it's a very nice picture of you guys, and I was supposed to play that during your introduction. Look at that. Look at that. There's a professional group if there ever was one. Very attractive group, I might add. Look at you guys.
Lauren front and center to take
you could all be models.
Negative aspect that I would draw to the camera.
I had to fight Jose for that position.
Oh, wow. That's, I thought maybe you guys had to draw straws or something. You got the lucky straw. Yeah. Well, we're really getting into some great conversation, and we're going to do it again. But I'll start it off the second time here, just as I did the first. Why hire an immigration attorney? Because we can do these things. Everybody can do this process themselves, or they're legal to do it, they're able to do it. But why hire a professional? What's the deal?
I would say it's because everyone may be able to fill out the forms, but they aren't necessarily able to figure out what evidence they need to include. So when you're doing it yourself the first time, you may run into issues, receive a request for evidence, receive a denial, and then the next time around with some of these applications, it is a lot more difficult. They're always going to refer back to that first application when then reviewing your second application.
So, I mean, okay, so let me ask you this, Jonathan, I'm going to go to you. I mean, how picky are these, these immigration people? I mean, can you misspell something? You know what? They know what we mean, right? Or no? How is that?
I mean, they're picky. And I suppose it depends on the type of application you're doing and what information they glean to be important to them. So, that being said, a very small thing could set it off and in turn create a request for further evidence where you have to overcome what they're claiming is a deficiency. But they are picky and they check out to make sure all their I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
What if it's an honest mistake? I mean, you just misspelled something in one spot. Is that going to trigger a response like that or what?
Typically, no.
Okay. All right. So they're not, okay. How about Lauren? If you forget something, I mean, how many times do you get rejected before? How many times can you go back up the bat, so to speak? How many strikes you get?
It depends on the mistake. Even with the green card applications through a spouse, the first denial puts you at risk for then being placed in removal proceedings. So we have had people come to us, they want to apply a second time. They maybe waited a little too long. Now they're not only, we're up against a denial, now we're doing this in front of an immigration judge because they're seeking or they're at risk of deportation.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole different process altogether. So if you're not in deportation proceedings, you mail all your applications in and USCIS decides whether or not to grant your application or not, versus now you're in court. You have some applications that get approved by immigration, but then the majority of your applications, the most important ones, are now decided by a judge.
Wow.
And you're being cross-examined by the government. And if there's any inconsistencies or skeletons in your closet, they come out. And if those are enough to render denial, you have a deportation order all of a sudden.
That's a whole different program now, isn't
it?
You better hire counsel. Yeah. So let me ask you, I mean, are these people out to get you? And there's a reason I'm asking. Are they out to get you? I mean, do they not want immigrants in this country? And there's a reason, again, that I'm asking that.
I would honestly say it depends, and it depends on the reviewing office. Jonathan and I were having this conversation this week. We have a local office that isn't too progressive, would maybe be the best way to put it.
Okay.
So it depends
immigrant
on
friendly.
I mean, not even necessarily immigrant friendly, but a same-sex couple is going to be faced with a lot more scrutiny than a traditional, for lack of a better word.
Is that really true?
Couple.
They would discriminate that. They could, and some do discriminate that way. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're always at the discretion of the reviewing officer.
Yeah.
So it really just depends. And if you are coming around a second time and you're trying to say that their first decision was wrong, they may not be too thrilled.
Yeah. Wow. And how much, I mean, here, how much do they tolerate? Like you're saying, okay, everything is there very strict. And I mean, what kind of things are they going to say? You know, something? No, absolutely no, not just no, but hell no. You're and stop you right cold in your tracks with the immigration process. What kind of things trigger that?
I think if you're not forthcoming about a criminal record, if you're not forthcoming about military experience in home country, for example, if you're from Israel, you have a mandatory military time that you serve. So you come to the U.S., you're applying for an adjustment. You should probably disclose that. The government's always going to find out. So really when they stop you in your tracks is if you try and pull one over on them. because you're not going to be successful at it.
Yeah.
And if you
Jonathan.
are, there's always citizenship where they can come and get you.
Oh boy. Jonathan, he had a look on his face at one point. I'm going, he's got something. He wanted to love it. Let's hear it, Jonathan.
Well, no, I mean, to get back to a couple questions ago. I mean, when you had asked, are they out to get you?
Yeah.
I mean, I think now, today, February 26, 2025, I think the answer is yes.
Okay.
I think that the posture that the government is taking in these types of cases is significantly more anti-immigrant. And I think that people are being put through the ringer, whereas in the first Trump term or in Biden's administration, that might not have necessarily been the case.
Okay.
And so again, in building on top of what Lauren said, the government really stops you in your track if you attempt to, BS your way through a situation, because at some point it's always going to come out. And in the majority of situations, had you handled this precarious situation that you deemed was so significant that you weren't truthful about it, had you handled it differently, it may have turned out and been a nothing burger, so to say.
Yeah.
And a lot of people really stumble there with that. And that's really a shame, because a little thing changes a very straightforward process into something that's very complicated and can go from something that would take only a few months to adjudicate to now something that takes years.
Yeah.
And so like an example, just to build on Lauren's, like we have people who have entered the United States illegally and they're now married to the U.S. citizen, and they have, significant hardships with their U.S. citizen child. They have a kid who has, severe physical disabilities. They can't function at all on their own. And so we file applications, and there's a route to go to keep this illegal parent to allow them to legitimize themselves.
And that can happen just because they were illegal to begin with, that you can turn that around.
Right. And
interesting.
To the point to what Lauren was saying, as we start doing this process and as we're spending lots of time and getting the case ready, we learn all of a sudden that this guy came in one other time illegally.
Oh boy.
So the waiver that we were seeking originally when we talked to the family and got hired and discussed as our way of getting out of this situation is gone. Now he's barred.
Wow.
And so those are the things that really stop things right in their tracks.
So be honest.
Yeah.
Just be honest.
Especially to your lawyer.
Well, yeah. The lawyer's not going to turn you in, is he? I mean, there's some attorneys to going, okay, that's it. You're bad. We're going to turn you into the authority. I wouldn't think so. Just be honest. And, interestingly, those are the people, it just makes sense to, go do things the right way. And just because you came here illegally doesn't mean that you can't make that right or turn that around in a way. And do I understand that correctly?
That's accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't be afraid, because you came in, don't run and hide and thinking, oh my gosh, and go see an attorney. And the attorney will tell you, yes, I can help you, or I think we can try this. You've got enough to go on here, or ain't no way in hell, so he'll tell you one way or the other. Yeah. When people come to you, both of you, and all three of you at the firm, what would you say are the top five? I want to ask both of you this question. What are the five most frequently asked questions that you get, that you receive? Go ahead,
I would say options. What options do I have? Cost. Okay. What's something like this going to cost me? Time. How long is this going to take? Who can I petition for? I got that question today from a current client. Once my wife's a citizen, now who can she petition for? Yeah. How long does it take? People don't realize just because you're now a citizen, you want to petition for a sister. In the Philippines right now, they're looking at applications from 2004. So I think there's a very common misconception that just because you're a citizen, you can start petitioning for the entire family, and it's an immediate process.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot. I remember a lot of people saying the year or the length of 2 years. The immigration. I just saw somebody on the news. There was an actor, I think. Said, it was a 2-year process for my wife to come here. And is that about? You mean for family, like for a fiance or something like that, or a family member? Is that about accurate? So go ahead, Jonathan. You're ready.
Well, I think for fiancés and for spouses to U.S. citizens, that the number that we're seeing is more along the lines of like 15 to 20 months. But
okay,
depending on the country, because the embassy ultimately is the institution that schedules the interview. If they have some wild, busy calendar, then in those instances, you might not get an interview for close to 2 years.
Okay. Wow.
So that can happen too. So, there's, countries like Philippines and India, China, Mexico. Those are the countries that typically have the most in numbers of visa applications. Okay. So those embassies move at a little slower pace than, say, Luxembourg.
Okay.
You might get something much faster. In Thailand, we were able to process interviews in about 11 months, which was really fast.
That's wow. From 20 months to 11 months. That is it. Let me ask you something. There's a rumor has it that the Trump administration, is backing off, or the Trump administration, they're changing laws, they're changing all kinds. I mean, have they changed laws? Have the immigration laws changed in recent years, in the past 5 years or so? I mean, or have they been the same, or what's going on there? I mean, let's kind of sift through get to the truth, I guess. How's that? What's happening?
You want to go first, Laura?
Go ahead.
Okay. So the immigration law, practitioners, we call it IRA. Okay. And that law was promulgated and put into use back in 1996. And we have not had a change to that law since that time. So since 1996, we've had Clinton, we've had George W. Bush, mm-hmm. We had Barack, we had Trump, we had Biden, and we have Trump again. Mm-hmm. All those presidents have come and gone with double and triple that with senators and representatives.
And immigration laws have not changed.
And our position in the world has changed. The facts and circumstances that affected us immigration-wise in 1996 are certainly not the same today in 2025. So there have been no law changes, and I don't foresee there being any changes in law because it's messy. And in order to change law, both parties are going to have to make agreements that are going to anger their side. And I think that, not to get too political, but I think that they are far too interested in keeping their jobs than they are in actually tackling.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are.
So what has been done is there's been change in policies.
Okay.
And these are executive orders, and these are policies that are being changed by heads of various branches. So, we have USCIS. The head of USCIS can change a policy. The head of immigration court can do the same.
I'm going to stop you right there. What's the difference between policy and laws? Aren't they the same thing?
Well, policies are the day in and day out rules that kind of flow from the law, but it's not this is the practical application of that law. So really? Law is the law. The law is supreme.
Okay.
A policy is just a policy that could be challenged by anybody in court if you wanted to. But the policies are the day-to-day implementation of how the law is going to be utilized in a court.
Interesting.
Or with immigration. So we're going to get rid of asylum. That's a policy. That's not a law.
Oh.
Or we're going to change a filing deadline from 30 days to 15 days.
I see.
That's a policy.
Okay.
That's not the law. So we've had lots and lots of policy changes just in the past 5 weeks.
Really?
And, we talk about this in the office as well. The first week of this administration was really difficult for a practitioner because there were 92 modifications of immigration law policy in that 1 week alone.
Holy
so to keep track of it was very difficult and frustrating at the same time.
You had a story that you shared with us prior to going live here. What it found you in a rather difficult situation. All these policy changes. Am I right? You share that with us?
Well, the story I was telling you, and again, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but it's just one on top of another of a little thing that makes things difficult in the practice. Whereas in this situation, from 2021 until Valentine's Day, the policy for filing documents in a removal case in the immigration court, it was a 15-day deadline, meaning all your applications, all your evidence, all your witness lists, any translations or documentation that you wanted the judge to see in your case had to be filed no later than 15 days before your trial date.
Okay.
And that's something that we were, we're doing it. And I have my calendar set up in such a way where, I have a 6-month deadline, a 3-month deadline. I have a 1-month deadline in 15 days. So all these things,
and you got to know where you're at exactly with all that stuff. Yeah,
exactly. And it's on my calendar, and that's how I handle cases, and that's how I've been doing it for many years. So all of a sudden on February 14th, a policy change comes out. That 15-day rule, it no longer exists. We're going back to the rule that existed prior to 2021, which was a 30-day filing deadline.
Oh, wow.
So where the problem comes into play is
how does that change things for you now that you
So I have a deportation trial scheduled for March 13th. So by default, when that memorandum came into play, I was already outside of the 30-day window to file documents.
Wow.
So I have to scramble, get everything together that I would have gotten together according to my 15-day calendar. So we're jumping through hoops to try to get something together as soon as possible. And now we have to file a motion to accept a late filing. Now, I believe the judge is going to grant that.
But they don't have to, though. They don't have to get it, do they? Wow.
Yeah, and then I have all this evidence that prior to February 14th, I still had 2 weeks to get to the court.
Wow.
And so those issues come into play. And it's very frustrating because it just drops out of nowhere with this administration in particular.
What's the worst case scenario in that situation that happens on both ends to you and your client?
Well, and I mean, in this particular case here, we've done such a great job in documenting the case, and my clients are prepared. So I personally believe we're going to win the case regardless. But this evidence that I had is fairly important because it offers a counter argument to a position that I know the government is going to make in our case.
Okay.
So it's relevant in that sense. So for me, if the judge were to deny that and agree with the government's position, not considering my evidence, that throws my case out the window and my clients would lose. And then they get ordered deported.
So unfair. So unfair. Yeah. How do you change that? How do you change that, Lauren? I mean, how do we change them? That whole policy change. The policies? Yeah, you can't. There's nothing you can do. They're going to say, "Hey, we're changing policy."
Nothing we can do. Wow. How do you change it? Become president.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And so that goes to another question I have: is can the president then I mean, he does think 'cause he's really on this whole, and I'm not taking sides here either, but there's pros and cons to everything. But do you see them going any further with those policy changes than what they have to date? Do you see them continuing to do more of the same? And it's going to be rougher for people who want to immigrate here? Or what do you guys think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a previous 4 years that wasn't even too horrific to set us up for now what the next 4 looks like. So we know that we're in our more straightforward applications. We know we're going to get more requests for evidence. We know we're going to get more redundant denials. We know that we're already on an uphill battle, and then they've just turned it up a level this go round.
And so would you say then now more than ever, get a professional to help you with your, application process? And that's not a sales pitch. That's not a sales pitch. It's reality, because it's just going to get more complicated and more difficult. Am I right, Jonathan? I mean, It's not going to be easier.
I always tell clients, they ask, can I do this myself? Just how you opened up the exchange this evening. Absolutely. You could do it yourself. But the issue that you have is you want to have someone there backing you up in case something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like insurance. All of us, we pay hundreds of dollars every month for all different kinds of, we have home insurance, we have car insurance, we have health insurance, dental insurance, eye insurance. For what? I mean, the goal is that you never have to use it, right?
Yeah, right.
If you never have to use any of your insurance policies, what a beautiful blessing that is.
Good for you, right?
It's like the lawyer.
Yeah.
If we don't have to do anything but submit your forms, it's money well spent. Because God forbid we have to reply, it turns into something more significant.
Absolutely. And let's get into that then. Once the application has been filed, I'm reading now. Can you expect to do an interview? And then how long thereafter does it take to receive a decision on that interview? Go ahead, Jonathan.
I was going to let Lauren go.
I'm sorry. Lauren, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely now there's going to be interviews during this administration. They went away under Biden. Some clients would be pulled in for interviews just to check a few facts if they needed to. I think we're definitely going to see now an interview for every application. Typically, during the interview, you'll have an idea of the direction the decision's going. They are decent about providing that decision quickly after. But then there are some applications that just get kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Stuck in the, what we like to call, or what they call administrative processing, kind of stuck in the abyss. And you have to sometimes just file a lawsuit to get a decision.
Do they get a look on their face, Lauren, when they're interviewing you? Do they just kind of, like they don't really believe anything you're telling them? And then should you get nervous, or you just relax and don't let that bother you?
Bless you.
I mean, relax and don't let it bother you, but they're also have no shame in telling you outright that it's probably an application they're not going to approve.
Oh, okay.
Or they need more evidence and they'll be sending that to you. There's really no guessing game to it. It's a pretty straightforward process.
Oh, good. They're straight up with you. That's good to hear. Yeah. But they didn't really, at one point, they weren't doing interviews. It's, that's fine. We don't really need that. Interesting.
Yeah. For some certain cases, they still did them. It wasn't something that was wiped off totally. But I mean, if you had a case that had very strong evidence demonstrating the bona fides of the relationship, then there was no need to do that. I mean,
what's the point, right?
Yeah, like you're submitting all this evidence that, how the couple met, the trajectory of their courtship. They're married now. So now, and there's beneficiaries on life insurance policies, health insurance policies. There's joint bank accounts. We see rhythm in the bank account that it's actually being used.
Yeah.
Then what's the point of having the interview?
Yeah.
But they still pulled people in, as Lauren said, for issues that maybe weren't so clear, because some people are unable to obtain that evidence. Or
maybe it's a timely thing where we didn't have that then, but we have it now.
Right.
And then during that interview, you would get to submit that sort of thing, right?
Right. Like, so they have, if you don't have a work permit, you can't open up a bank account.
There you go.
So how are they going to have a functioning bank account if they haven't received their work permit yet?
Perfect example. Yeah.
Things like that.
Okay, so here's another one for someone who has already immigrated to the U.S. and now wants to bring a family member here to immigrate, whether a child, a spouse, parent, whatever. Are the chances better for their approval since their relative is already a citizen? Since the person here is, like, let's say you're here and you want to get your child here, or maybe you want to get your mother, whatever, or father, or both. Is it a better, your chances better of doing that if you're already a citizen, or maybe had been a citizen for a while, or hey, I'm a new immigrant and I've just got mine, I'm going to go ahead and apply for my mom and dad? Is there any advantage to either way? Length of time here?
I would say it just depends. It depends on what family member you're petitioning for, because that may take a longer time.
Okay.
If you're a citizen and you want to apply for a sibling and you're from the Philippines, you're looking at a 20-year wait, 21-year wait.
Really?
Yes. If you're a child and you want to petition for your parents, you're over the age of 21, you're a citizen.
Okay.
That's going to be a straightforward process, as long as your parents don't have already a negative immigration history.
Yeah.
Because then everything is, we can get into the weeds, but I don't think
anytime
anyone
you're
will
doing
enjoy that.
the criminal stuff, yeah, it's like, okay, mark against you, but yeah, right.
Right.
But
or
providing
maybe
you
a
got a clean
previous
record,
illegal entry.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So it matters where you're petitioning to, I would say, right? Like to, or what do you call that? To or from? I would say, if your parents in Guatemala or wherever, or Mexico or something, like different than if they're in the Philippines or in China or somewhere like that. Am I correct?
Yes. And the location's going to come into play, immigration history, all of that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Is it easier to bring a child here or easier to bring an adult, a parent here?
If your child's under 21, it's probably about the same. If you now have a child who's over the age of 21, you're looking at a lengthy process as well.
Okay, interesting.
Or if they're married.
Oh, yeah. Hey, there's one. So if somebody's married and you got married in, I don't know, Mexico, whatever, and hey, you came back to the United States, you want to bring your spouse here. It's not just because you're married that's going to be a piece of cake, right?
Right. Right now, for example, if you are a U.S. citizen applying for your over the age of 21 child who's not married, they're processing visas from 2005. If you are married, 2000.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So that little quirk. So, I can't tell you how many times I've had people call me up and they say, oh, we filed for this visa. My parents filed it for our brother 16 years ago, and he went for his interview today and they denied him. Well, what happened? Oh, he got married. Well, your visa's no longer ready. So they denied the case.
Wow. Yeah. That's what people, you got to wait a long time for some of those types of situations. Then what takes so long? What is the big delay? There's just a number of applications, or
there are only, visa applications as far as green cards for family members. There are only, what is the exact number here? I don't want to mislead you, but you're looking at about a couple 100,000 approvals per year.
Okay.
So, for example, unmarried sons and daughters get 23,400. Unmarried children and spouses, there's 114,000 for those.
Wow.
And that includes over and under the age of 21. Married sons and daughters, there's 23,000, and siblings, there's 65,000. So that gets shared amongst all populations in the world and all applications, and you just don't have enough numbers, so everything's backlogged.
This may be a little off point, but what would we do? What could we do as a country to expedite that process a bit? You hire more people, you know, and then how many more?
You increase your numbers of visas available every year.
So that's, yeah, it comes down to that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, you know, I understand why siblings may be, you know, the slowest go. I mean, they're 20 years waiting. But, you know, on the flip side, a lot of people ask questions. Well, immigrate to the U.S. the right way.
Yeah.
Well, it's okay. I don't have a problem with that. So put on your hat of a realistic scenario where mom applied for the son to come here 15 years ago and they're waiting.
Mm-hmm.
During that time period, mom now develops this horrible disease. She has brain cancer, and she's been told by the doctor that she's got 2 months to live, terminal. Okay. What is the son who's been waiting 15 years to get here? What is he supposed to do? Of course, he wants to see his mother before she dies.
Yeah.
He hops the border. So his whole immigration process that was legal and lawful up until this point is out the window.
Gone.
And now he's in trouble for entering the United States illegally. And, you know, so there are considerations that need to be made. How do we speed up a process for reuniting family members? Okay. Because it's only,
especially in conditions or situations like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, there has to be ways, but these visas are only available for parents, children, spouses, and siblings. I can't apply for my cousin. I can't apply for my aunts and uncles. That's not part of the game. It's strictly children, spouses, parents, and siblings. So it's family reunification. And in this country, we hold families to a level of importance. So our immigration laws should reflect that as well.
Yeah. Lauren, what's the most interesting immigration case that you've had? What's been the one that really, like, oh my gosh, this was tops in my book of this is, you know, what would that be? Give us a little few details.
I would say my most rewarding would be winning an asylum case for a woman who was experiencing domestic violence in home country. So she did come to the U.S. illegally. She brought her children with her, trying to escape a difficult situation. And we were able to apply for her asylum in court, win, and now she can legally be in the United States living with her family and protected from her abuser.
What's that like? Do you get to ever witness these people when they first, you know, together and you're like, hey, man, they're finally together? You ever get to do that? Have that pleasure?
Sometimes we get people their green cards and they're like, oh yeah, cool, thanks. I'm like, okay, wow, dagger in the heart.
You're really excited about this, man. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow. And they really just don't seem like this is like a big deal for them. Wow.
Oh yeah, no, not at all.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. Mm-hmm.
Wow. How about you, Jonathan? What's the case that said, man, this is the one that, you know, I'll be telling until I'm 90?
I mean, there's a lot of different cases that have been successful in the past that are memorable for different reasons. You know, one that really tugged at my heartstrings was a case that we had in Chicago for a family that was facing deportation, and it was a separation of family. The husband and the eldest child were in deportation, and the spouse and two daughters were not. And to win that case, I was with the family. I mean, everybody was just ecstatic with the results. Tears were everywhere. They broke out American flags in the courtroom. It was really quite remarkable and rewarding. But that benefit that we have in our office is that we handle cases nationwide. So we see a wide variety of cases in all different courts and all different settings. So there, you know, one case that I'll definitely remember for a long time was a case that I lost. And it happened in closer to home immigration court, where we had a guy who was convicted of felony drug trafficking and in federal court. And so he actually received a prison sentence for this. But prior to going and being sentenced, he cooperated with the FBI, the DIA, because he was literally a go-between. This guy would pick up the drugs and drive it to the person who was buying it.
Like the movie we saw. What was that movie? The Mule? Was that what was
Mule.
called? Is that what? Okay. I pulled that out of the cobwebs, man.
So
Yeah.
he literally, for $500, this is what the guy did. And he got caught. I mean, the buyer was cameraed up. There was video of the whole thing going on.
Wow.
And so he was caught. And so we worked with the DEA, we worked with the FBI, and we worked with local police drug task force units. And he cooperated and provided valuable information. So he was from Jamaica, and in Jamaica, it's very much a country where people talk about everything. So in your neighborhood, people will be like, well, they heard that my client was arrested. They'll hear stories that my client was in jail for a long period of time. And then they'll hear stories that, hey, he really didn't do that much prison time based on the case that he was arrested and convicted for. And they'll start drawing conclusions. Well, he must have cooperated. He's a snitch. Automatically, that's the attitude.
Mm-hmm.
So the story was that our guy was viewed as a snitch, that subsequently his son was gunned down and murdered in Jamaica as a result of his father being a snitch. He had the same name as his father, and that we had witnesses who had testified that they were approached asking where my client was. So
Wow.
Where is he? We're going to get him when he comes back. So we had great testimony from our client. We had an expert witness who was a professor from a university in North Carolina. Fantastic testimony. And so then I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really feeling good about this case. It's a hard case. We had a very high burden of proof. And I'm like, we nailed it. We have it. So the icing on the cake that's going to seal the deal for me is I have the friend who was approached by the gang in Jamaica. I got him. I'm bringing him into court. Bring the guy into court, and I get him to tell a story. Oh, yeah, I was down there, and I was at this garage. What garage are you at? I was at so-and-so's garage, and all of a sudden, this gang came up to me. I knew who they were. How'd you know who they were? Well, everyone recognized who this guy was. They asked me where my client was, and they told me they were going to kill him if he ever comes back.
Wow.
So I'm like, sweet, we're looking good.
Yeah.
Cross-examination starts, and the witness's testimony just comes apart, and he starts lying about everything under the sun.
Oh no.
Everything. Like the prosecutor asked him, where were you and where was my client when you told him about this interaction you had with a gang member in Jamaica? The witness says, oh, he was at my place of business. I told him there. And the prosecutor's like, well, when was this? Oh, right when I got back from Jamaica. He had testified that he was down in Jamaica during a time period when my client was already in prison for this case.
Wow.
So the whole case falls apart right there.
What are you doing this whole time? You're thinking,
I wanted to choke the guy out. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I have so many hours in this case, and we won until he did it. And lo and behold, the judge is like, look, I find the client, I find his story reliable. The expert, the problem that he has is he was relying on facts that he was told by the witness. So his testimony is not as rock solid as it was. And I find the witness to be incredible. So denying the case.
Wow.
That's a case I'll never forget.
And he blew it all in a matter of what, 20 minutes?
Yeah, like
Is that right?
happened so fast. I was like, I couldn't even believe it.
You're like, what the hell just happened here, right?
It was unreal.
Oh my God.
Well, what makes that case just the worst of it all was the client was between having already done his citizenship interview and being naturalized and doing the oath ceremony. And that's when he got arrested. That just makes the case just
stupid.
That much worse.
Yeah. He got arrested. 4 days later, we received notice for him to appear for his oath ceremony to become a citizen.
That's like being on the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
And fumbling the ball. And then the other team takes it and goes run. Wow.
That's the old, Ernest Biner move for the Cleveland Browns in 1987 against the Denver Broncos in the AFC Championship.
That's true.
Oh, wow.
I know what you're talking about, too. That's even more scary.
I'm still scarred by it.
Yeah, right. You're not that old, Jonathan.
I'm old.
Oh. Well, so the moral of the story, tell the truth and don't be an idiot, right?
Yeah,
does that sum it up?
That is solid advice.
That does sum it up.
What kind of immigration applications do both of you see the most? I shouldn't say spousal, but people like who want to get married or are married, or is it kids and parents, or what is the most common, would you say, Lauren?
I would say our most common in the office would be family petitions and then asylum applications for forms, for actual forms that we're doing.
Yeah.
I think that would be the most.
Asylum is that big, huh?
That we see. Oh, it is. I mean, if you're in removal proceedings, you're likely filing an asylum application and potentially, if available to you, other forms of relief.
Interesting.
But I would say the most volume that we would see is family and asylum.
How about you,
We
John?
definitely do plenty others, but those are just our highest volume.
Main two there, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say family based on that, and also asylum, and it is a significant, a significant number of people come to this country because of asylum.
Yeah,
and just because they come in and file for asylum, it doesn't mean they're going to get it. The standard of proof is very high. So to file asylum, you need to fear persecution.
Okay, it's not just I'm afraid and I'm going to come in, but
that's a bona fide reason to file for asylum. I'm afraid because I'm anti Ortega, and therefore the Sandinistas are going to get me if I go back.
Okay.
Now,
so you have to have something legitimate to base it on. Okay.
And most people do, or gangs coming to get me. Like, that's a legitimate reason to file for asylum.
Okay.
I'm afraid of the police. I'm afraid of the gangs. I'm afraid of this. But
do you need proof for that?
You need proof. And it's not, being afraid of a gang in and of itself, or being afraid of Ortega in and of itself is not going to be enough to get asylum. So, one thing people need to understand is nationwide, there are about 700 immigration judges. So you have millions of cases in the immigration court. For asylum cases, the average of all 700 judges is a denial rate of about 67%.
Wow.
So they're denying and deporting.
Wow.
66 to 67% of all asylum cases they hear.
Yeah.
I would say that, in that sense, you're seeing, what is appropriate. Now, I mean, if I was a judge, I'd probably grant more because I believe that there's, certain reasons that people file and they meet the standards of proof that they would, could very well be approvable. In Ohio, our immigration court, I think the denial is closer to 78, 79%.
Wow. I'm scared to go back to my country, but I have a criminal history. Does that affect me? My situation, my case?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Depending on the crime.
Yeah.
So it depends on the crime that you've done too.
Especially now. Depending on what your status is when you're coming to see us, if you are illegally in the country and you are accused, not convicted, accused of stealing a pair of socks from Walmart, you are now subject to mandatory detention, and you will be in removal proceedings.
What if I have that criminal? What if I did something in my home country? Does that affect me?
Problem? Depending on the offense, that's an issue as well.
Both.
You might be inadmissible. I had a case probably about 10 years ago where I had a client who was former U.S. Navy.
Wow.
Married, and he was stationed in Japan for probably 2 decades. Married a Japanese girl. Prior to him getting married, this Japanese girl, she was living with her boyfriend. And this is probably like 30 years ago. And the boyfriend was dealing drugs, and she got popped by living in the same house. She was arrested for possession.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Yep. And due to that fact, she was deemed inadmissible to the United States.
Wow.
So even though the U.S. Navy guy wanted to come back home to Iowa with his wife, there was nothing we could do to bring her in because of that drug conviction. If she had, done something else, like let's say
shoplifted,
steal a car
or whatever,
run somebody over, I could have done something to get her in. But
drugs are that big of a deal.
Drugs are that big. Any drug other than possession of 30 grams of marijuana or less is the
Listen up, kids. Take note.
Is the
30 grams or less.
Once you guys have helped your clients fill out the application, do the application properly, make sure that they have everything they need, and it's in order, what happens next in the process? You just wait?
You just wait. They will communicate with us. USCIS will if they need anything additional from us, but it really is just a waiting game.
And then if you need an interview, do you have to, is that something that you guys partake in? Obviously, you've been in court with your clients, but how does that work out?
Mm-hmm. We prepare the clients for the interview. If they want us to be there, that's something that we arrange with them. But a lot of our clients, I have clients in Hawaii right now. I'll be prepping them for their interview tomorrow. They feel comfortable going alone.
You don't get to go to Hawaii. That sucks.
I'm trying. Don't worry. I was trying. So it just depends. But
I've had
a lot of the
times.
times.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, he's the lucky one. He's the lucky one. Yeah. But yeah, so it's really just a waiting game. And USCIS has this horrible feature. Online, if you create your online account, it will tell you an estimated wait time. And the time is not accurate. It is never accurate.
Oh, wow.
It will change from 11 months to 2 months to 1 month to 14 months.
What?
And every single time it changes, a client's calling me.
How the hell does
that work? God, it added more time. Why aren't they making a decision? So it is the worst feature that they have implemented on their website. It's not accurate.
Wow.
And it is just a waiting game.
Yeah. Jonathan, during that waiting time, do people get anxious and call and say, "Hey, what's going on? I haven't heard anything." And what do you tell them? What can you tell them?
Well, some people I'll tell them, the answer is the same that I gave you last week. Well, but most of the time, clients are respectful, and they'll call and we explain, "Hey, this is where things are. All you can do is sit and wait right now."
Right.
Beats the alternative. And if you haven't heard anything, we set a timeline like, "Hey, if we haven't heard anything in 6 months, call me back. And then I think we need to do something to nudge the government along." Okay. And you can do that maybe. There's certain things like that you could file. And this is also where clients tend to say, "Okay, I think I'm going to wait." There is a requirement that the government conducts business in a timely fashion. Okay. And if you have a case that's just out there and it's not going anywhere and it's past a reasonable amount of time.
And that's subjective, I'm sure.
It is, but there's some like guideline to it. Like you
Okay.
have the anticipated time that it's supposed to take to do something.
Okay.
And we're a year past that.
Okay.
You could file writs of mandamus in the federal district court to get action on the application or to supply a reason as to why the application's not going anywhere.
Okay.
Now, ultimately, it could push the government to ultimately just deny your case.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Mhm.
But
tick them off.
Generally, the way that it works out is once those mandamus actions are filed, the U.S. attorney contacts immigration and says, I really don't need to be wasting my time litigating this issue. What's going on with the case? And there's usually movement shortly thereafter, whether there's an interview that occurs or there's a response to the adjudication.
Okay.
So that's something that can take place. Clients usually say no when you tell them how much you're going to charge them to do that.
I would assume that doesn't come for free. Exactly. I mean,
that's I mean, you're in federal court, so now
a
it's
little above and beyond. Yeah. Well, okay. So speaking of costs, and I'm not going to ask you guys how much you charge, but there are fees that are associated with I'm sure that each type of immigration application comes with its own specific type of fees. Am I correct? So everything's
Correct.
it's not like, cookie cutter. Everything is the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, can you just give us a bit of an idea of, let's start, for instance, like a parent wanting to bring a child into the country from Mexico is a pretty common place that people immigrate from. Am I correct, or is that just a false assumption? Okay. Let's just say, Mexico, parents here, and they want to bring their son or whatever daughter over here. What are the set of fees that they can expect to, have to incur with that type of situation?
So you're looking at a multi-step process that is going to have a fee at different steps. So to start it, you want to file for your child, you're looking at $675 to USCIS to get that process started. You're approved, your case gets sent to the National Visa Center. You then have a filing fee of $445. You're finished there, you attend your interview's done, time to have the green card printed, it's another $230. So you're looking at a fee for each step. And then, of course, different processes, different fees. You have a family in the United States, you're looking at around $2,300 total for those application fees. And then that's something we have to keep an eye on because they love to change those fees on us as well. So last April, I think it was, they changed our filing fees on us. So we have to tell people who we're actively in the middle of a case with, hey, your fees went up. And it's not to us, it's to the U.S. government.
Yeah. So once you've actually filed and they've received it, that's it. You've paid your fee.
Yes.
But if you're in the process, that could change during the process, you're saying, and then, you got to do what you got to do, right? Wow.
Yep.
I mean, it's still affordable. I mean, and I'm just doing a little math here, but that is affordable. It's reasonable costs, right? Costs money to run an agency, I'm sure, as President Trump.
As a side note, what virtually nobody knows about.
Yeah.
The entire immigration process at USCIS, so the function of granting visas and green cards and naturalization certificates, that is 100% paid for by the filing fees.
Oh.
Your tax dollars do not go to that. It is funded entirely by
those
filing fees.
That's, that's good to know. I mean, it's good to know. It's self-servant. I mean, it serves itself.
That's why it costs more to adjust somebody's status in the United States versus going through an embassy.
Yeah.
Because, of course, the wages that are paid to embassy personnel are less than are paid to USCIS officers working in the United States.
Interesting. Wow.
But it's entirely paid for by those filing fees.
I like that program. You guys?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
have no issue with it.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
We got enough stuff we pay for in this, in this country that we don't even know about. I mean, obviously we're learning here,
But I think that's just something that it's valuable for people to know, because in this climate, it's the outlook on immigrants is very sour.
Yeah.
And so to say, hey, this is not affecting our bottom line on this side over here. It's paid for by the people applying for it.
Yeah.
Which I don't think, I mean, I don't know the answer, but I don't think that it's done in any other agency.
That's impressive then.
Right? I mean,
Lauren?
No, I don't think so. Well, I was going to say another financial thing that I don't think people are aware of that would be good for them to be informed on is immigrants who are here on work permits, have green cards, have social security numbers, are paying into Social Security, a benefit they will not receive. So they're actually helping fund the Social Security program. Everyone loves to complain that the immigrants are here, but they're helping fund a program that almost all citizens are benefiting from.
They won't receive any benefits from that.
Nope. A green card holder will not. If someone were to naturalize at some point, they could potentially benefit from it. But green card holder, someone who's here with a pending asylum, gets a work permit, has a social, will not benefit from Social Security. That's
a very important piece of information that I think, and I'm glad you shared that with us, because I had no idea that. I mean, I guess if you think about it, well, yeah, if they're working, they're going to be paying into Mr. FICA.
Yeah.
And Mr. Social Security,
Same with illegal immigrants that are working. They pay into the system too.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Illegal immigrants also, majority pay into the system. I mean, if they're working for an employer that's paying them in cash, no, then they're probably not paying into the system. But a vast majority of these people, they obtain legally an ITIN number. So an individual tax ID number, which requires no valid immigration status whatsoever.
Really?
With that ITIN number, they file taxes because they're a part of payroll now.
Okay.
And so they will not be able to benefit from any Social Security benefit due to their immigration status, yet they pay into it substantial sums. So, there's a lot of inaccurate facts going around.
Yeah, people that get angry about that whole thing, and they really don't understand the whole situation.
I agree.
Yeah, they see the front side, they don't see the back side, and that's good. I think there's a lot of that in this country. You guys agree?
Yeah,
there's a lot of that. But give me an example, and I think we did this when we realized we were off here. Give us an example of what would make someone ineligible to immigrate to the United States. And you said, I would just tell them right off the bat, rather than take their money. We're going to tell them, hey man, you don't have a snowball's chance in hell, which is great. But what's example of, you're never going to get in here. This is never going to work. Give us a couple examples.
Criminal convictions, certain ones that'll keep you out.
Okay.
Even if there's waivers available for that case, the likelihood of them being approved are so low that I would inform somebody of that fact. People who have entered the United States illegally on more than one occasion, that's a kiss of death. People who have been accused of human trafficking, you're not getting in with that one. If you have certain military training, or if you have been someone that worked in a prison that has been accused of human rights violations, those are types of things that can keep you out. Also, on a legal note, you have a husband applying for a spouse, and the husband is a very low income earner. He has verifiable earned income of, let's say $15,000 a year. Maybe he earns everything in cash, and he's like, all his life, he's like, I've made all this cash. I'm not going to declare it. On his tax returns, it shows $15,000. But he wants to bring over his spouse. One of the requirements when you bring over a family member is you have to have a sponsor. And that sponsor has to be able to demonstrate that they earn 125% of the national poverty guidelines. If they're unable to do so, you can't bring anybody over.
Yeah.
So this guy could, in fact, never be able to bring over his wife unless he can find a co-sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
But that could keep her out as well.
Yeah.
His failure to have enough income to support her, to demonstrate that she will not get in on the public welfare system.
Oh, yeah. I understand. And what is that poverty level in the United States at this point?
I believe for a household member of one who's bringing in one person, what is it, about 19,000, Lauren, or something like that right now?
It's up to 25,500
For one?
For a household. That would be a household size now of 2. It's 25,500. And then if you go up to 3, they've upped the amount per person, and it goes up by 6,700, I think, for each individual after that a year. Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you real quickly. You said military. What is the big deal about the military? The background that will keep you, that they kind of shun.
Well, I'm two fronts. I mean, one, if you are, if you're trying to get over to the United States, back in the day, and you were some soldier in Bosnia and you were engaged in torture, and wiping out villages, that would keep you out. If you've had certain weapons training, that might make you inadmissible as well.
That's what I wondered. Okay.
If things like that are issues, and they look into all that stuff.
And they'll know exactly what kind of training those military people have had. Is that right? That's
absolutely.
Yeah.
They ask.
Interesting. Well, we have learned quite a bit. Now, I have asked a number of questions. I have one more, but I'm going to save that till the end. Is there anything that either of you would like to add, or just state that here's what I think another thing people should know, or anything like that before we wrap it up? Lauren, we'll start with you again.
I would just think in this climate, what most people want to know, who don't have status or have a pending status, is what their rights are. Immigration is increasing the amount that they're detaining people. Immigration is increasing their raids on businesses. And really, my main thing, and Jonathan can definitely touch on this, is if you do have a pending status, carry that evidence with you. It doesn't hurt to put a receipt notice in your wallet, just making sure that you can prove that you're working on it. You're not just here illegally, although there are some people who are, and that's fine. But if you do have a pending status, just make sure that you're bringing that evidence with you to protect yourself,
so that you can prove it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because you probably still can. Hey, let me go home and get that. But how embarrassing is that? Number one. And number two, you're going to be detained somewhere, right? Until that, you're able to.
Absolutely. Yeah. And my other PSA is really just don't drink and drive. It's the most infuriating thing of people who are getting picked up. Because even if you have a pending status, the DUI it's just impossible to try and get someone released now, even with pending status. And then you're just going to be stuck detained. And for what? It's just really not worth it.
Yeah. Wow. That's stupid. I have to say, that's just stupid. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, don't commit crimes, especially when you are in such limbo. You would think it would be second nature.
You would think, I got to behave here. I think I could do that for a year or two or whatever it takes.
Yeah, right?
When you're talking about the ones with 16, 20 years, I might get a little impatient with that too. But for 2 years, 20 months, come on.
Let me lay low.
It's not going to kill you.
Plus.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Well, okay, Jonathan, your turn. What do you got for us to add?
Well, carrying on with what Lauren said, it is vital to have proof of your status while you're here. Because of the aggressive stance that immigration is taking right now, if you have been here for more than a year, have proof to show it. And actually, it's 2 years now is what with the policy change. It's not 2 years, not 1. So have the proof you've been here for more than 2 years. and know what your constitutional rights are if you encounter ICE at your home while driving or at work. There are things that, regardless of who you are and where you are from, you have constitutional rights. And
just because you're in the process and you're in the middle of it doesn't mean that ICE can't show up. Am I correct?
Right. I mean, if you're in limbo, you're in limbo. And if you're out there driving without a driver's license,
well, and then there's that. Yeah.
That's a huge one.
Don't be stupid.
In Ohio, we don't have the greatest public transportation system. So everybody drives.
Wow.
That's a problem because that leads to so many unnecessary encounters with ICE.
Yeah.
Because people do get pulled over for their physical appearance. And so had you not been driving, you wouldn't have been caught.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one statement. And I guess what I would say to people out there listening is to understand that enforcement is not the only way to go in terms of correcting our immigration issues in the United States.
For example?
Well, to only go out and arrest people who are here illegally at the workplace, walking down the street, that's not going to stop illegal immigration in this country. What needs to be addressed is what is bringing those people here. What reasons are there? Well, one, we have of course, the socioeconomic issues that are going on in their home country, in our own hemisphere. So it's not like we're talking about Siberia. We're talking about a country that is connected by one continuous landmass to us. Why are they coming here? We have an interest in trying to figure out why. What can we do to try to improve that situation so that people are not encouraged to come up here? So to have a collapsing government in Venezuela and a dictator in Nicaragua is probably not, the greatest thing in the world if you want to keep people from leaving those countries and try to come to a place that's safer.
Right.
But also people are coming here for work.
Yeah.
Employers should be regulated. If employers aren't hiring, people aren't coming.
Yeah, there's no opportunity.
Right.
So, there's no opportunity. There's no desire for, yeah.
So if you're just working on enforcement and you're deporting people who are coming here, but the guy still has the, open light lit up and illuminated, people are still going to come.
General consensus. America doesn't like immigrants. Have you heard that?
Yeah. We've had death threats in our office since November.
We have.
You wait. You've had death threats in your office directed at whom?
Well, at our entire firm, but they were directing more heinous crimes to our Latina paralegals.
Really?
So, and this is something I've been doing this. I've been an attorney for 25 years. And I have never, ever had to call the police for someone threatening our office.
Yeah, my gosh.
For something as, us doing our job, which was the root, of their call. They were giving us the big FU. We're going to blow you up and we're going to do this to your, they used negative language to describe the girls and their ethnic heritage.
That's incredible. I mean, that is just, I've never heard of anything like that before.
Yeah.
And that just happened this year?
It happened days after the election. It was wild.
Oh, wow.
Along the same time that many people in this country, including many of our clients, received those text messages that were threatening and harmful, that we're going to come and string you up the same way that the people in the South did lynchings.
Oh, no.
Yes. And that went nationwide. And we had at least 24 clients who received those text messages.
So then it comes as no surprise that people would in other countries would say America hates immigrants. And I can understand why they would think that. I think the argument that I have made is we don't hate immigrants. We just don't care we don't want them to come here illegally. Go through the process.
I agree with you.
And when you see people coming here illegally, and the last, and I'll just say this, I don't care. It's my show. The last administration allowed that. Said, hey, it's no problem. I mean, they proved that they let it happen.
Well, it's different because,
but it makes people like the people that want to get here legally and are going through the process go, what the hell is going on? Why am I doing this? Why prepping this process? But go ahead. I'm sorry.
What's interesting, and what I would say to you if we were sitting around having a beer and we were talking about this, the vast majority of those people that had come across the border, they weren't running across the border and being here scot-free. No, they were apprehended and they sought asylum. So after they had their screenings, or after it was determined that they had a viable basis for asylum, or if it was determined that there were no beds available in the area in a detention center,
okay,
they were cut loose to file for asylum, which under law is legal.
Okay.
So all those people that crossed the border
at some point were legal.
They're legally until a judge says, or an asylum officer says no.
Says, okay.
So all those people that came across, they did it legally.
That's interesting.
Not everybody. Now, of course, there's bad
I understand.
And there's bad actors, and you got people jumping the border that were never caught that were in here. Those people, you're not going to hear it from me to say, keep those folks here. Right. But if you are following the law, and right now in 2025, our law is you can't file for asylum at any point inside the United States or at the border, then you're legally in the country, whether or not the administration lets you in or not.
Yeah. And there's a time there that you are legal. I don't think people realize that. That's interesting.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. Most of the people come in, I want asylum.
Yeah.
And the Border Patrol agent makes a determination. All right, we're not going to keep you. Where are you going? What's your address? Blah, blah, blah. We're going to issue these paperworks.
Yeah.
And they're lawfully here. It's not that they're just let go.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you shared that with us, because I'm quite certain a lot of people do not realize that and don't know that.
Right.
Filing the asylum thing. Yeah.
You're not going to hear. I don't think that you're going to hear from any immigration lawyer that they want to have free and open borders with absolutely no security or processes for an individual to, enter.
Yeah.
We all want those processes, but as it is right now, asylum's on the book. So if America wants to be that country that doesn't have asylum, then they should pass the laws.
Change the laws, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But right now it's on the books. And so for me, I'm more offended at someone comes here, asks for asylum, and we turn them away and have them wait in another country rather than go through the process of asylum here. And most of our clients, they don't abscond. They show up to court. They go through the process. If they got a dog of a case, they get that deportation order.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're coming here and disappearing by the millions. That's a fallacy. I mean, Lauren, last year, I don't even recall if we had anybody that went missing of all our clients all over the country. So
that's
I have people
very
coming
good.
to me saying, oh my God, I didn't get my notice. I need to go to court. Can you reopen my case? And they're putting themselves out there to say, hey, I want to show up. How can I?
Yeah. That's pretty cool. And that's very good. That's very, very no. I think a lot of this, and it's just my opinion, I think a lot of that whole, I think a good bit of the problems that we have, the attitudes that we have in this country can be attributed to our wonderful news media for making things appear as they most often are not.
Yeah.
Am I correct and accurate in that, or what? I don't care what side you're on. I don't care if you're a conservative or a liberal. I think the news media is terrible. I'm sorry, but
things are easily portrayed a certain way and
Yes. Yeah.
never corrected or explained in full color.
And I'm sure there's not money involved in that skewed, just saying, kids. Where can people contact your law firm and get in touch with either of you?
That would definitely be, go to our website. There's an option to email us, and there's also a phone number to reach us directly. On our initial prompt, you do have the option to speak with a lawyer directly. So you don't get an initial answer by a assistant. You can get us directly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That number is 216-771.
Perfect. Give us the area.
No, that's not.
I was thinking my old number.
Oh yeah. No, dude, give us your office number.
216-710-6700.
Right,
that's our main direct line.
One more time.
216-710-6700.
And the website
is bgjattorneys.com.
Okay, got it.
bgjattorneys.com.
All right. That's fantastic. And I do that because there are people that just listen to this as a podcast. They don't get the have the luxury of seeing things scroll across the screen. So very good. Listen, guys, I want to thank you both for being our guest here tonight. Absolutely a pleasure speaking with both of you. I've learned a lot. I'll say that. And I think our audience will learn a lot too. And you both presented the information quite eloquently and very, very tastefully done. So I want to thank you both for that. So,
thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So I want to say this for now. This is CW Getz saying thanks for tuning in to Outdoors People. We'll see you next time.
Take care.